Ryan, great to talk to you again. This time, the conversation is all about a look inside of Intellicheck. So thanks for making the time.
It's good to see you again. Thank you.
So let's put a little context around the conversation. So Intellicheck has been around since 1994, 30 years of validating identity, making sure that when people show up, the relying party actually has confidence that it is, in fact, the legitimate person. You do that for a variety of different players, for a variety of different use cases, both online and in person. 99.9% accuracy, that's pretty good.
Well, that's what our clients tell us. We'll dial it down a notch just to be safe, but certainly law enforcement and banking who really care and test, that's the number that they tell us.
That's amazing. What is the hardest part, though, of doing that, of making sure that when it really matters, that the person who's showing up is in fact the person? What's the hardest part of doing that today in a digital world?
I think that it depends. It's really about having something proprietary to be able to tell if is the license real or not. And I think that's where we're very, very different. We've been working with DMVs and driver's licenses for that entire time of the company. So we've got insight into barcodes that nobody else does. And I think the hardest part for Intellicheck is differentiating ourselves from everybody else and how they do it, which is to look at the front of the license, and compare that to a template. And those templates are known. There's books that publish, here's where the holograms and everything are on every license and where it should be placed. And the people making fake IDs know that. So it's really keeping ahead of the bad guys. It's very difficult when you're just trying to base it on the front of the license or even where things are positioned on the back. I think it's a lot easier for us knowing the security features on all 250 valid barcodes in North America, right? That are in circulation today.
Wow. So that's something that you obviously honed over 30 years of experience and working with the authorities in doing that. So is that the source of truth for identity, driver's license, the government issued ID?
I'd say at this point in time, it is, right? There is no government issued, we all have to have it licensed. And I think what makes it difficult is then you're relying on each individual state. So it's a driver's license or a state ID. So, every province, every state in the US and every state in Mexico has their own format, not only of how the front looks, but also their barcode format. So that's what makes it both hard to counterfeit, but also, equally hard to be able to tell if it's real or not.
And so when I was looking at your earnings transcript of just a week or so ago, and one of the things that you commented about was that sometimes prospects or clients don't necessarily want accuracy because it creates too much friction and it may impede their customer acquisition strategy or some other metric that the business is in the business of being accountable for. But you can't really do that when the consequences really become greater than the whatever customer acquisition goals you have. How do companies justify that trade-off?
See, I think it really depends on the sector that you're in, right? In financial services or anywhere the stakes are very high, where they lose if they don't catch the fraudster. I think it's different than certain industries where they lose if they catch the fraudster. So there are certain things like, there are certain, industries, and I think, I've experienced in vaping and alcohol sales and things where they don't want to do it. They want to be able to check the box and say, we're doing the best that we can. And, they are doing something, but they know that things are getting through. Now, and that's where it's almost an area that we don't want to play. We do work in it. We're in a partnership now with TrueAge to help bring the ability to catch fakes and only sell to of-age children in convenience stores. But certainly where it matters, where you're opening an account and you did it and you're going to get in trouble, or somebody stole an account or opened up credit in somebody else's name, where you have to be certain, that's when they really care. And
Mhm.
then, they're going to insert the level of friction that they think is appropriate. Our customers will, that they think is appropriate to the risk of that transaction. And they can do that by transaction. Each customer, if it's, below this risk tolerance, just do the back of the license in a digital world. If it's this, go all the way through to facial recognition.
Mhm.
So, we give them the option to decide what they want to do.
Mhm. You talk about the idea of the go anywhere ID.
Mhm.
We seem like we may be a long way away from that. How do we get there?
I think everybody's looking at how to do it. And the scary bit about it is, how do you make sure that we have let somebody in and given them this, go anywhere reusable identity to make sure that it really was them?
Mhm.
Because if you can't be sure, you've let the fox in the hen house. So, that's where we are looking forward, either, our own development that we're currently doing or with partners. The first step is really the most important. And I think some of the states are trying to go there with mobile DLs. The uptick has not been that great there. It's going to require a lot of change to a lot of systems. So I think it could almost be like, when credit cards got the chip, took forever to get it
Yeah.
going. In the meantime, there are other things that we can do to help create an identity that is known and secure. So aligning, okay, my first step is, do I have government issued ID that's real? Okay, how else can I validate it? Can I speak to the different banks that we're working with and say, okay, well, there's an account here, there's this, there's that. That's where we're talking to our clients, because since we have so many large financial institutions and we see so many transactions of people across North America, we think that data can allow us, in conjunction with
Hmm.
our clients, to begin to create that, so
So
that
do,
bank
yeah.
A can trust bank B and bank C and so on.
So it becomes more interoperable because right now it is a very fragmented
Yeah.
identity space. And even at the airport, I think we chatted about this before. I mean, with Clear, you're often asked to present your ID. And then I have so many different things now. I have TSA pre-check, I have the EID. I mean, you never really know when you're going to be asked to present a physical backup to the digital identification that you registered for and think is your sort of your admission, your pass.
Yeah, and then you got to make sure that they've got it right. I had to re-up at the airport, and it just could not read my license. Because now they're going more facial, and I had to re-register. It could not read my license. So not only does it, you've got to be sure on the back end, it's got to be easy to use for the consumer on the front end. Otherwise, they bail. And certainly, everybody's worried about card abandonment on any transaction in the digital world.
Yep. So how do you, but how do you fix that? So you can get, you can get the banks to align around a standard, but then you have to have acceptance.
Mhm.
So does the alignment around a standard come before acceptance, or does acceptance come before the relying around a standard?
Yeah, I think it's the whole chicken and egg thing, which
Yeah.
really did come first. And I think, we're talking to our clients and looking to see, can we form a consortium, right? Because that data, it's very interesting. They each can see their own data, right? And make
Mhm.
what they can with that. But given that we are across so many, we see data and can say, well, you're talking about, Brian Lewis over here. We've seen him over there. So what can we glean from that information? So, we're talking to them now about opting into a program where we can start collaboratively to come up with these tools to help, the community in the future.
It's almost like an identity network that
Correct.
becomes a standard, like collaboration around fraud,
Mhm.
collaboration around identity, where you've got the ability to look across multiple financial institutions and get the benefit of everyone's data.
Yeah, and it's interesting because they're all, they're competitors to each other, but they
Mhm.
all come together when it comes to fighting this, because they're fighting the same organized crime rings. It's the same people hitting bank A as hitting bank B, right?
Mhm.
So they know that if they can get a combined solution that works better, it's better for all of them.
Outside of banking, where are the stakes the highest, and therefore where is identity validation the most necessary?
The one that shocks me the most, and I never would have thought of it, but is the amount of land and houses being sold out from under people.
Yeah.
It's it's crazy high. It's one of the reasons that we're doing so much business with title insurance companies. Many of the largest title insurance companies are beginning to roll us out now to all of their agents. And we've signed with one of the largest providers of the software that provides, the backbone for how independent companies run their business. And the numbers are surprisingly high in terms of what we're seeing of fraudulent attempts. And, that's what the title insurance companies are telling us. The reason they're looking to roll it out is the fraud causes so many problems. And then the other big area, which again, surprising to me, given how long it takes when you're sitting there to actually buy a car, is the fraud in the automotive space.
Really?
I would be petrified. I'd be sitting there sweating if I were the crook, but they obviously don't care because you're sitting there for, it seems like, eternity with
Yeah,
a guy, and meanwhile you're stealing somebody's identity, and it happens all the time.
really.
So yeah, and it is a problem. That's another big area where we see a lot of growth as a company, selling either directly or through resellers. Like, for example, we just had a very large auto manufacturer roll it out to all 2,600 of their dealerships. That rollout is starting next month and will continue in all 2,600. Well, it should be up sometime mid-quarter. And again, it's because the fraud is so high in that space. And the stakes, the average new car sale, I think, was, $47,000 last year. They hit a more high-end car. It's big money lost.
So basically they walk in with a synthetic identity, a driver's license that's fake.
Yeah. And I'd say, no, it's not a synthetic identity. When we talk to our clients, synthetic identity is something that's talked about a lot, but it takes a very long time to build up. And then go get, the license is the easiest part. So it's usually not synthetic identity. It's, I've gone online as the bad guy and I can buy all your information for about $20. The price goes up or down based on your credit score. The higher your score, the more you can obviously get in terms of credit. So they buy all that, your name, address, social security number, cell phone number, email number, all of that. And then they go online and, when they're going to commit crime in bulk, they're buying multiple IDs. The ID costs about $40. So in bulk, per person, it's $60 to now own your identity. Wow. And if you think about all they ever asked for, social security number and a government issued ID, I'm now you. So it's cheap, quick, and easy.
Wow. I've often said if someone really wants to be me, they need to do all the work that is me.
Yeah.
I'm not sure someone would want to sign up for that. You can't just take the easy way out. But that, I mean, that's so that's terrifying. So basically what we're battling is it's accessible identity elements with fraudsters who are using it. We have to assume that is happening, and we have to have systems in place that stop it. Is it possible that the fraudsters can develop the technology that is hard to identify as a fake? I mean, aren't they getting better at that? Don't they have better tools to use?
They can, but there is a lot that you would need. Everybody's always talking about AI is going to make this easier, but AI requires a lot of data, right, to be able to really get it down right. And this is my stack of fakes that I always have that law enforcement gave me, which I've learned not to travel with because TSA questions you when you have that in your bag.
I would imagine.
Yeah. But again, all those barcodes are different. Every state has different security features. Some have digital signatures that you have to understand and know, and you can't, they're near impossible to crack. So, eventually, maybe, I think years and years from now, I'm sure they're putting effort into it, but it's hard without tons of data to be able to flow through of each one of the barcodes to try and be able to figure out, how do I crack it?
When you talk to law enforcement, what do they tell you and what do they want from you in order to make their jobs easier?
So what they're looking for is the main thing is speed, right? So they want to be able to know calling dispatch can take a while, right? You got to call in and the operator's got to the dispatch operator's got to type everything in, connect to the other system, talk to it, bring it out. And, the other thing is, just because the data matches what's in the DMV record doesn't mean that the document is real. Around 150 million driver's licenses, the full data on it has been hacked in breaches. So that means the document discriminator, the ID number, everything on that will show up in, it matches. It will be the exact same thing as in the DMV database. So they like the fact that we're authenticating the fact that, that barcode matches that jurisdiction for that date of issuance. And we can return that to them. And, average processing time is 44 milliseconds. So right away, they know.
So what does the police officer, law enforcement have to have in order to do that?
Oh, just any kind of mobile device. So
really?
Yeah, we deliver our product really four different ways. I'm sorry. One, you can just download an app on a mobile device and scan the license with your phone. We've got then for people who want to get up and running quickly and don't want to do a lot of integration, which is what a lot of like auto dealerships do. We can give them a website that they can log into that's branded for them. And then they can send a text, whether you're standing in front of them or you're thousands of miles away, to your phone. And then your phone walks you through the process. For the majority of our clients that are doing anything in person, they use an API. So that's when, if you've gone into a store and gotten instant credit, you're probably going through us. We're integrated with the point of sale system. And if you are, they're doing something in the digital world, something we recently brought out, makes it really simple for them. 2 simple webhooks, one to initiate the transaction, one to then receive the results. And then that will invoke a white labeled process they can define. Looks just like them, everything from, do I want just the back of the license, back and front, back front, and facial. And then they can also decide, do they want everything else they need for AML KYC, because we can send that down as well. So everything from device fingerprinting to phone and address match to sanctions, PEP, criminal background, all of that.
Is there low-hanging fruit in this space that we can address that can make a material difference in the identity theft and fraud that we're seeing?
I think, the majority right now still is happening in, where we see it is in banking. And then the very simplest thing is in instant credit, because, that's where, I can walk into a store, because again, part of what I can buy is, where do you have credit cards already? That's the stuff I can get online. And then, I go shopping, and that is literally hundreds of billions of dollars a year in loss. I go in and I either open credit in your name, or I walk in and I say, hey, I forgot my credit card, but I like the loyalty points. And they'll ask you for your driver's license. And depending on the store, the last 4 or 6 of your social security number. And again, now, if I've got a fake license, if law enforcement can't tell by looking at it, the retail clerk probably isn't going to be able to either. So I've already got your social, I've got this fake. Okay, they walk out of the store with, an expensive generator or, jewelry or whatever, which they can easily resell. So, the more we can make sure that things are happening in that space, I think the easier it is to protect the average consumer, because by transactional volume, certainly we see that's where a lot more fraud occurs than in any other sector that we deal with.
Brent, how do you feel about digital wallets as a repository for driver's licenses? Is that a step in the right direction, or are you cautious?
Look, I think a lot is going there. A lot of people are talking about that. Again, I think it's one of those things that, even when we talk to the wallet people, and the banks who are all building their own wallets, and they're trying to figure out, how does this work? Eventually, I think, again, that's going to be something that makes sense. It's why we're working with some, crypto wallet people now. But it always depends on that first step. And, can we be totally secure that the license is real? And, I think there's still some people who question it, and I think rightly so. I believe that, eventually digital wallets will be how we all do everything. I said from the first time I got a smartphone, one day this thing is going to rule our lives. And it's sort of coming true, because, everybody freaks out if it's not within arm's length. You
Mhm.
know, we go to bed with it. It's on our nightstands, you know, so it's that kind of thing. And I believe it'll get there. I believe it's a ways off. And it
Yeah,
will still always need, how do we truly authenticate that it is me who's downloading that license, that credit card, whatever it is, into that wallet? You know, that's always been sort of the Achilles heel of all these things. Is
yep,
it really me that you're letting into that inner circle?
yep. And how are consumers reacting to, all of the digital interfaces where they're being asked to put their driver's license? Or, I mean, if it's your financial institution, that's different because you trust your bank and you trust that your credentials will be safe there. But there are an awful lot of situations where you're being asked to do things and you're not quite sure, and yet you have to in order to complete a transaction or get access.
I think where people explain it better and what the reason is, people do it more. And we certainly see that with our clients in the digital world. Those that explain it a little bit better than other people, you know,
Mhm.
other companies, I see higher completion rates on the transaction. I do think people are getting more and more used to it. And it's kind of interesting that we're afraid to do it in the digital world, but we'll hand our license to somebody who walks behind a curtain, right? You don't know what they're doing behind the curtain sometimes to authenticate things. So it's you know, in a way, unfounded fear.
Mhm.
I think it's compounded by the fact that we're trying to teach so many people to worry about what you're doing online for phishing
Right,
attempts and all of that.
right.
So I think the more clear you are on who you are and why you're doing it, you know, the more you see conversion rates increase.
I love the one about the hotel check-in where you not only are asked to produce your license, but they take a copy of it, a photocopy of it. Let me copy your license. Like, what are you doing with that? My
Mm-hmm.
also favorite one is the notary that writes it all in a book.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, where does that book? I mean,
Where does
that's
that book sit? What are they doing with it? You know, and then again, that's sort of one of the reasons that in automotive, it's not only just fraud, but it's also protecting compliance.
for
Because
sure.
remember, they're supposed to get copies of your license, but if that is stored digitally in a format that, you know, can't be hacked, you know, you pixelate it, you do whatever, then okay, you know, we're good. And that's why a lot of our partners in the automotive space are, you know, it's all the front end of the house with sales and compliance.
Yep. What's 2025 going to look like? Any different? I mean, it's hard to believe that we finished Q1. We're going into Q2, 25, the midpoint of the decade will be here before we know it. Will we notice any appreciable difference? How long will it take before we see the combination of digital identity being less fragmented, more secure, and less friction in terms of presenting those credentials?
I think it's going to be well beyond 2025 because, you know, even within, you know, the banks that we deal with, there's still very divergent views on what you can store, how you can use it, what you can do with it. One of our large banks wants nothing to do with the PII, right? So, you know, we work with them. They want us to erase the PII immediately, and all they want from us is, you know, it's you know, a valid looking license and you know, a fake looking license, or it's valid looking but it's expired. Then you've got people on the other end who are doing, we want all the data so we can data mine it and figure it out. So I think it's going to take a while before, you know, legal opinion at the different banks and how they think about, you know, the precautions they need to take because of all that PII being stored in some repository. A lot of concern about that, which I think will delay some of this. Now, you know, people are talking about walking around with a reusable identity that doesn't have any PII, but everybody will accept. Again, the problem with that is, what is the first
What is
step?
the first step? Yep.
Are we sure that that was really Brian we let in? And I don't think there's enough confidence yet that it's true. We know that it was Brian.
Yep. Biometrics, the solution, the not solution, the enabler. I mean, it
It's,
still goes back to what is that first step?
yeah, it goes back to that first step, but then after that, there's a lot of convenience on it. You know, you know, what I'm seeing is certainly a lot of states are putting out, you know, different rules, regs, laws, whatever you want to call it, on what you can do with biometrics. And, you know, if you don't follow those exactly, there's a lot of potential liability in class action lawsuits, as we've seen.
Mhm.
So it's I like the convenience, certainly.
I do too.
But again, it's where's the data stored? You know, where is that vector stored? Who has access to it? How do we control it? You know, those types of things. When it's on the device and I've opted in, I
Mhm.
think that will be an important, you know, player in the, you know, the way to play in the game. You know, central repositories of the vector of your face definitely seems to scare a lot of people, certainly with me, because once that's hacked, they've got it.
Yep.
And I can't change my face, you know, so again, I think slow adoption for a while, but I do believe it'll take off at the end.
One of the funny things I saw as we wrap up on Reddit, I was looking at Reddit the day that it IPO'd, and the most interesting thing in my feed was this little town in the Midwest was very concerned about prisoner privacy in the lineup pictures. So instead of showing their faces, they put Legos with drawings in place of everyone's face to protect their privacy,
Yeah.
just so that as they were photographed, their identities weren't discllosed.
And then Lego,
There's always Legos, Brian, is what I'm saying.
right? Well, Lego, I think, went after them with a cease and desist. So
I think it probably is that true? Did that
yeah, I
happen?
think I read that a few days later.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's funny. So
Yeah.
I guess there's not Lego. So we'll have to come up with another backup plan for
Yes.
protecting our faces with facial recognition. Brian, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for your time.
You
Great.
too. Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye now.
Bye.